Hello all and welcome back. Earlier on this channel, I have posted an A to Z DPS guide for Frost Mages. In that video, I have talked about what stat distribution you should have, which tier slots you should use, which crafted items you should use, what are your best in slot trinkets, and so on and so forth. Also in that video, I have shown you a sample talent tree for AoE and single target, as well as showing you the actual rotation in order to maximize your DPS output. In this video, I would like to improve upon that previous video and show you some situational rotations, as well as some utility talents that might be useful. So earlier on, this was the talent tree that I said was the most ideal for AoE situation and Mythic Plus. And the special thing about this particular talent tree is that it's based purely on putting on the maximum amount of offense, as well as keeping you alive for the longest period of time, so maximizing your defensive abilities. I would like to show you two very crucial talents that you would definitely need to be using for any key that is basically above 19. Up until and probably including 19s, this tree is the best for Mythic Plus encounters. And on keys such as 20, 21, 23, and all those high keys, you would like to be using the following talent tree on almost every encounter. And what's special about this particular talent tree is that instead of investing 1 point in cryo freeze, which heals you when you ice block, and investing 1 point on reduplication, which decreases the cooldown of your mirror image ability, now you would be investing these 2 points in these two crucial talents, Spell Steal and Dragon's Breath. I would like to talk to you about Spell Steal first. It basically steals certain buffs on particular mobs and bosses alike, hence the name Spell Steal. One encounter where Frost Mages would be most useful is none other than the No-Crit Offensive. The reason why you need the Mage with the Spell Steal ability is this following boss, the Raging Tempest. This following boss has one ability that basically increases its attack speed and damage whenever it absorbs an orb. So what you can do is you can actually Spell Steal this as a Frost Mage, and there's no cooldown on Spell Steal, so you can just keep Spell Stealing it whenever the boss casts that ability. And you would be helping out your tank greatly, you would be helping out your healer greatly, and so on. So overall, it's an amazing utility talent for this particular boss. Allow me to show you certain examples from No-Crit Offensive and Shadowmoon's Burial Ground, where the said ability is very useful. One example where Spell Steal is most useful is when you're fighting against packs that have this shield on top of them. For instance, on No-Crit Offensive, you see these guys, their entire HP is made out of the shield. So you can do the following. Just Spell Steal the entire pack's HP. You can do this and they are dead. Another place where Spell Steal is very useful is when these mobs that have this horrible ability Death Blast spawn, you see that half their HP is actually a shield shown by the following symbol up atop their heads. So you just Spell Steal that and half their HP is now gone. You can also use Dragon's Breath if you do not have Interrupt to disorient them. Another ability that I would like to talk about is none other than Dragon's Breath. Lots of people ignore this ability because it's a very crucial ability for fire mages, but Frost mages, who needs fire damage, right? Wrong. The reason is, okay, maybe it has a low damage output. That's fine. I know every one of us wants to maximize their DPS output, but this ability has a very, very crucial point that most people just skip over, and that is, just look at this. Enemies in a cone in front of you takes 6096 fire damage and are disoriented for 4 seconds. Damage will cancel the effect. So what this does is it helps you in any situation where you do not have like the usual interrupt, and as a Frost Mage, since you're a ranged DPS, your interrupt cooldown time is a level longer than melee DPS, and so on. So it helps you disorient the packs, essentially interrupting the small adds. And one other thing that that is interesting is if you happen to have Seal of Filial Duty, this fire damage actually procs the ability of Seal of Filial Duty, and some additional abilities that you would like to use on certain encounters. For example, if you're in Temple of the Jade Serpent and you want to help out your healer dispel the curse of your fellow teammates, the ability that you would like to be using is Remove Curse. This is especially useful like the packs after the second boss and before the third boss. Another ability that's very useful is Alter Time. So how this works is you cast this ability, it basically saves your space, like your character in space-time, right? And then you can move, you do DPS and so on and so forth, and eventually you go back to your initial position with your initial HP and mana, and it resets the cooldown of Shimmer or Blink ability if you go with Master of Time. Another very useful ability is Blast Wave. When combined with Filial Duty and Dragon's Breath, it procs the ability of the ring a lot of the time. And since it knocks back the opponents, it also works as another form of interrupt. One other very useful ability is none other than Polymorph. Now, you want to be using Polymorph in very specific encounters. For example, if you are doing No Code Offensive on a high key on a Tyrannical week, and if you do not have anybody in your group that has some sort of instant cast CC abilities, such as Warlock, such as like Sap from Rogues and so on. If you do not have these guys, you would like to use Polymorph on no-con Stormcasters. You would ideally like to be using this on the one that is the furthest away from your tank. And another place where you would like to be using Polymorph, or where you may need to use Polymorph, is again if you do not have the set composition of players that have some sort of instant CC ability, the demon ad before Advisor Melandros, the very last ad that you kill before the final boss, it calls upon this this second ad, which is in the form of a bat, and you can basically CC that ad with Polymorph. Now that we have talked about our utility abilities, the next most crucial thing on our list is something called baiting. There are certain mobs and certain bosses whose abilities you need to be baiting as a ranged DPS, as a healer, and especially as a Frost Mage. One example of that is the boss called Advisor Melandros. I will show you how to bait this particular boss. Please mind that during an actual encounter, the boss would be somewhere in the middle with aggro on the tank, and you would have lots of space on the sides to be standing in. So this demonstration might be a tiny bit away from the actual truth, but let's see how it goes. And as a ranged DPS or as a Frost Mage, you need to be standing on one of the corners. Now, when it casts Blade Surge, move away. As soon as Blade Surge is over, of course, dodge Piercing Gale if he casts that, but you can actually stand inside this and it's not going to harm you. So you can place the second Blade Surge in it, and then, of course, please mind for the stuns. And during Slicing Maelstrom, go away from it. But at any other time, you can actually stand inside these things. They are not going to hurt you. Right? Like this, for instance. And you can go back into it. You just blink once away from the thing. Like as long as you are away from the circles, that's fine. And again, you can just go into it. It's not going to harm you. What this does is look how much space it leaves for other people to dodge Piercing Gale and dodge Slicing Milestone, of course. Another place where you can bait the boss's ability is during the boss fight with Heimdall. As a ranged DPS, you need to be standing between the pillars. The reason why we want to be doing this is the following ability, Dancing Blade. We would like to place Dancing Blade away from the melee DPS and away from our pathway, as we would need to have as much space as possible in order to dodge the Dragon's Breath. We stand here, you see it's gonna cast Dancing Blade. As soon as it casts it, just blink once and go to the other corner. And do the same. If it happens to be like this, just stand somewhere here. Now, when it's Horn of Valor, just watch out for the Drake. Your tank will most ideally just move the boss wherever the first Drake was. So just go back here, immediately blink to one of the corners, and just wait. As soon as it casts Dancing Blade, just move away. Go to the other corner and repeat. One very important thing that I could not just skip over was the following packs on Shadow Moon Burial Grounds. So this first pack after the first boss, when you're fighting this pack, do not, as a ranged DPS, just do not interrupt the dominations. And be very careful with your Dragon's Breath. You don't want to interrupt the dominations initially, like their initial cast when domination timer is like that. You just focus on the other ads, interrupt the other ads, and so on. And at some point your tank will your tank will eventually interrupt them, and then you keep interrupting them and help your group and so on. But do not interrupt them when they're casting this very long domination. Lastly, I would like to show you how to burst out great damage as Frost Mage. Now, this does not mean this is a rotation that you should use for AoE encounters. I have explained that in great detail in my previous video, A to Z Frost Mage DPS guide. What I'm going to be showing you right now is how to put as much damage as possible in a very short window. Now, this could be useful in very quick encounters where you need to be putting out the most DPS. One example that I can think of is the imps on Court of Stars, both the ads that round around the map, as well as the ones that are spawned by the second boss, and the spiders from Shadow Moon's Burial Ground. Here's the rotation. Start with Icy Veins, cast Frozen Orb, cast Blizzard, fill it up with Iceland's procs. If there's a very tiny window, use Ice Nova and do the rest. If not, just keep doing that. Okay, so let's go.
It is not ready yet.
As you can see, that's some pretty good burst damage, 270k or something like that. Okay, all, that's it for today. I really hope that you enjoyed this advanced DPS guide for high keys. Now, it is time for you to go out there, do high keys with Frost Mage, time it, and show to the world that Frost Mage is the best ranged DPS there is. Before I go, I just wanted to mention that only a very small portion of my viewers have actually subscribed to the channel. If you want to see more Mythic Plus runs, more DPS guides, more gold farms, and pretty much anything World of Warcraft related, please consider subscribing to my channel. I would really appreciate it if you do. Thanks so much, and stay frosty.